नारायण वासुदेवा हे नारायण वासुदेवा हे भद्रे नारायण वासु श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी हे नाथ नारायण श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव हे लक्ष्मी नारायण वासुदेवा हे बद्री नारायण वासुदेवा हे बद्री नारायण वासुदेवा हे लक्ष्मी नारायण वासुदेवा श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा हे राम नारायण वासुदेवा हे श्याम नारायण वासुदेवा हे राम नारायण वासु हे श्याम नारायण वासुदेव हे राम नारायण वासुदेवा हे श्याम नारायण वासुदेवा हे राम नारायण वासुदेवा हे श्याम नारायण वासुदेव श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. He Gopal Radha Krishna Govind Govind, He Gopal Radha Krishna Govind Govind, He Gopal Radha Krishna Govind Govind, Govind Govind Krishna Govind Govind, Govind Govind Krishna Govind Govind, He Gopal Radha Krishna Govind Govind, He Gopal Radha Krishna Govind Govind, He Gopal Radha Krishna Govind Govind, Govind Govind Krishna Govind Govind, Govind Govind Krishna Govind Govind, He Gopal Radha Krishna Govind Govind, He Gopal Radha Krishna Govind Govind, He Gopal Radha Krishna Govind Govind, Gopal Radha Krishna Govind Govind, Shri Krishna Govind Hare Murari, He Nath Narayan Vasudeva, Shri Krishna Govind Hare Murari, He Nath Narayan Vasudeva, 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 Shri Krishna Govind Hare Murari, He Nath Narayan Vasudeva, Shri Krishna Govind Hare Murari, He Nath Narayan Vasudeva, Shri Krishna Govind Hare Murari, He Nath Narayan Vasudeva, He Nath Narayan Vasudeva, He Nath Narayan Vasudeva. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, Sarve santu niramayah, Sarve bhadrani pashyantu, Ma kasyid dukha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Welcome to Satsang. Let's begin with just a few minutes of meditation together. So just allow your eyes to close. allow the attention and the focus to shift from things outside to the inside. Draw the awareness to the breath. Allow yourself the awareness, the focus, to just merge with the breath as it flows in and flows out. As you inhale, as you breathe in, allow this sacred environment, allow this sacred air, the air that has been breathed in and out by sages and saints and rishis for thousands of years. The air that blows from across the tops of the Himalaya, across the waters of Mother Ganga. Breathe it in. And don't take it in just as oxygen. We get so much more from the breath. You're taking in sacred energies. You're taking in the power of awakening. Breathe it in. And allow it as it enters and rises through the body. Allow that sacred and divine energy to touch and illumine and awaken the cells of your being. Carry that breath. Carry it into every cell, every corner, every aspect of the being. Breathe in that energy of light. Breathe in the energy of holiness and sacredness, the energy of transformation. Feel the being filling itself and opening and awakening inside in every cell as they open to this light. Gently bring the palms of the hands together at chest level. Rub them gently against each other. Place the cupped palms over your closed eyes. Open the eyes and lower the hands. Welcome to Satsang. If everyone could just take a moment and make sure your phones are off or on silent, it'd be wonderful. Sometimes we think they are, and it turns out, unfortunately, they're not. I will start with a question that's come in advance, and then open it up to any questions that anyone here has. Spiritually, we can feel love for everyone. So it sounds like you could have a romantic love relationship with anyone. How do you decide if someone is the right life romantic partner for you? As anyone who's ever been married could tell you, it actually takes more than love to make a marriage work. Those of us who come from cultures other than India, where when we're very young, we fall in love. In India still, there's a Maryada. You don't see teenagers, with boyfriends and girlfriends and whatnot. But in the West, you do. And when we're very young and we fall in love, there's this idealism of it doesn't matter how different we may be, nothing matters, just being in love. And it's not that we lose all of our idealism as we grow, but we do tend to get somewhat more realistic, somewhat more wise in the ways of the world, somewhat more jaded even, you could say. Because there's something very beautiful about the idea that love could conquer all. And the truth is, in a vacuum it could. If you and the one you love lived in a vacuum, so there was no other people, there was no society, there was no need to get up every day and go to work and make a living, there were no cultures, there were no religions, there was nothing like that. It was just you two and love. Love might absolutely be enough to sustain a beautiful relationship. But that's not how we live. We don't live in vacuums. We live in societies, we live in worlds with difficulties and tensions and all sorts of challenges in life. And so in a marriage, there absolutely has to be love. But we tend to also need, in order for a marriage to be really successful, where 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, 50 years later, you're not just cohabiting without killing each other, but there's actually still a spark of love. There needs to be some other components. And this is what the question raises is, spiritually, if we love everyone, then on that level, everyone could be the right husband or wife for us. And again, maybe in a vacuum, yeah, why not? But first of all, loving the divine in everyone, which is what spiritual love is. When we speak about how to use relationship to get closer to God, whether it's a love relationship, a romantic relationship, whether it's your colleagues or your employees or employers, whether it's your neighbors, the teaching is always see the divine in them, see God in them, rather than seeing them as an annoying in-law or an annoying coworker or an annoying neighbor. See the divine in them. See them as God. Not their actions as God, not their annoying habits as God, but see the divine in them. So that rather than focusing on the tone of voice they're using or their actions or how loudly they're playing music or how unkept their garden is or their desk or whatever it may be, instead of focusing on that, we focus on the divine. And if you can achieve that, then you achieve this aspect of spiritual love, which we're loving spirit. It's not about body to body. It's not about form to form. It's spirit to spirit. But in a marriage, you've actually got to figure out things like who's going to go grocery shopping? Who's going to stay home and take care of the kids? What religion are we going to raise these kids? Who's going to discipline the kids? Are we going to live in an extended family? Are we going to live in a nuclear family? Who's going to bring home the bread? Who's going to be the one who has to get up and go to work? And obviously we have societal norms, especially in India. But just because something may be a norm doesn't mean that it's what our choice is. And these days, even in India, things are changing so quickly that there's no rule anymore that it has to be like this, that the man has to do that and the woman has to do this. Things are changing very rapidly. मैंने देखा मेरा बस 23 वर्ष हो गया और 23 वर्ष में इतना change हो गया कि it's like night and day. So even in India, norms are changing. And so in a marriage, it's not just about, oh, I love you, you love me, I can see the divine in you, you can see the divine in me. Well, if we're both divine, who's going to take out the trash? Somebody's got to. If we're both divine, who's the one who gets to sleep in and who's the one who gets up early and goes off to work? If we're both divine, then when you want to go for Chinese food and I want to go for Italian food, who gets to decide? Like, who's giving in to whom? And these are all, small little things, but there are bigger things. There's all sorts of challenges that marriages present. And this is why it's so important to look at things other than love. And spiritual love, at least, when we're looking at soul to soul, spirit to spirit, that stands you in very good stead. Because at least over the next 10, 20, 30, 50 years, your spirit's not going to change. But when most of us fall in love, we tend not to fall in love just with the spirit. We fall in love with kuch kuch hota hai. There's that, right? Something happens inside. There's this feeling inside. And that's great. Nothing wrong with it. The problem is that kuch kuch doesn't usually last that many years. There needs to be something deeper. When we fall in love because, oh my God, he's handsome and she's beautiful, and we can, there's this click. That's great. Again, nothing wrong with it. But the problem with that is when we fall in love like that, we tend to fall out of love. And this is where you see such a high divorce rate. For example, in America, which is a culture that doesn't have arranged marriages, that doesn't have a situation where someone who's not in the throes of passion is actually stepping back and saying, all right, wait. Let's look at how they've both been raised. Let's look at the culture they come from. Let's look at the norms from both of their families. Because, again, not that it has to be like that, not that they have to match, but that what we know is a marriage is so difficult that even when you come from the same background, even when you're the same religion, same race, same socioeconomic status, same age, same education background, that's still not enough to make a marriage work. You still need a lot of love and a lot of grace and a lot of ability to surrender and sacrifice. But we know that at least those things help give you a strong foundation for when you have to make choices. And to handicap yourself unnecessarily is a decision that most of those who make arranged marriages wouldn't go for. Which is why when we're living in a world mostly of love marriages, there's lots of passion, there's lots of falling in love, there's lots of everything. And then there's a lot of falling out of love. And so when you're thinking about someone being a romantic life partner, absolutely there needs to be love that is non-negotiable. There also needs to be a mutual, not single-sided, mutual willingness to sacrifice. Because while you both can't get what you want all the time, it also doesn't work when only one person is the one always sacrificing. And so there needs to be a mutual agreement to sacrifice. And not just to sacrifice on Chinese or Italian food, but to actually make sacrifices. I mean, when we have to make a choice, you get a job offer in this city, I get a job offer in that city. Or you get a job offer here, but my elderly parents live here and it's important to me to stay and take care of them. These are the sorts of real situations that people face. And it's really important. You obviously were not clairvoyant. You can't know in advance exactly what situations you're going to face. But what you can know is how willing is someone to sacrifice for me? How used are they to getting their own way all the time? How much are they expecting me to be the one to sacrifice? Because I'm the female, because I'm younger maybe because I come from a lower socioeconomic status, maybe whatever the situation may be, but is someone expecting the other to always be the one to sacrifice? It should be both. And remember, of course, from the question of how do you choose the right one, we're going in at square one. How do you deal with a 30-year relationship with problems is a different question. But this is our our magic wand, we still have the opportunity to make decisions. We still have the opportunity to say, all right, this one is right or that one is right. So in that world, they both should be prepared to sacrifice. And ideally in that world, as much as you have in common, especially if you're going to live in a culture like India, but not exclusively India, much of Asia is like this. If you live in a culture like Asia, where there are certain cultural norms, it's going to be easier for you if you follow them. It's going to be easier to be in the society when you follow those norms rather than everybody in society saying, how could you, what are you thinking, oh my God, blah, 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 whatever. Again, in the West, that's not such an issue. But it's still a very, very big issue in Asia. And most importantly, really most importantly, is, are you both walking the same path? Are you both looking for the same thing through this marriage? Puja Swamiji, when couples get married, always says, let your relationship be a way for you to get closer to God. Walk together toward God realization. And so we have questions that come up a lot of, what do I do when my husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend is not on a spiritual path and I am, and how do I deal with that? But if you're still in the phase of getting to choose someone who's on the same path, not just theoretically, but really. If you're a meditator, choose a meditator. If you're someone for whom going to temple, going to church, going to gurdwara, going to mosque is important and an important part of your life, and doing puja is important, they may not necessarily need to be someone who also loves to do puja, but they should be someone with a deep connection to God. And again, it's not essential. It's not that you can't make a relationship work without it. But these tend to be the things that make relationships much, much stronger and last much longer, and create a situation where you're not just cohabiting. You're doing your thing, he's doing his thing, she's doing her thing. But really where you are walking together toward God, hand in hand. And so when you're choosing, choose carefully. This is forever. Choose someone who really is someone you can walk with forever. The problems that come up later are different questions. We'll deal with those another time. But for now, when you get to choose like that. And have spiritual love that we spoke about in the beginning. Have that for everyone. But make sure that the person you're marrying, there's also a little bit of this worldly love. Because you've got to live in this world. Unless you're planning to just go and live in a cave. And since you've got to live in this world, make sure that there's the ability to love each other and to get along on this worldly level as well. I'll open it up to any questions that anyone here has before taking any others that came in advance. Yes, Ed, and then you.
So,
yes.
When you're on a path and you're discerning questions and you find your place, I find sometimes that I want to doubt myself or think somebody else knows an answer that I don't know. And then that causes doubt and confusion because I think, okay, I've come to a decision actually a guru or somebody knows something that you don't know. So when you get in that situation, how do you wend your way through that?
Okay, so it's a beautiful question, and it can be broadened a bit, and then we'll come back to that specific. So that level of discernment, my inner voice, how do I know when to trust it versus trusting the people around me? And it's difficult because within ourselves, there's so many inner voices. It would be so much easier if we only had one inner voice, and that was the voice of God, and everything else was just an outside voice. And so all we had to do was sit in a quiet room, turn off the phone, put in earplugs, and then we could hear the inner voice. Unfortunately, it's not so simple because our ego speaks from within. Our fears speak from within. Our desires speak from within. All of the culture that we've internalized for decades speaks from within now. And so that inner voice, it's now become very, very tricky to discern which inner voice. And so there's a couple of aspects to this. First of all, the practice of meditation is a practice that gets us more and more familiar with the divine inner voice rather than the voice of ego, fear, desires. A lot of times though, well, before I come there, when people in the world will say things to us and give us advice for all kinds of reasons. One of the issues that comes up in here frequently is issues of drugs and alcohol and peer pressure and people saying, oh, just have one. Oh, just try it. Oh, and that sense of why people would force us to do something or try to convince us to do something we don't want to do. And I always explain that it's because us not doing it is this mirror for them of the right choice that they're not making. And of course, they don't want us to make the right choice. And so it's much easier for them if we all make the choice to drink alcohol or use drugs, because then they don't have to look at their own choices. And so in situations like that, that's when we need to stay rooted only in that voice from within. It's never, well, God, all of them are saying I should try it, maybe I should. We've got enough discernment, enough clarity inside to realize, well, they're all saying it for the same reason. Then, when we come to questions of people we trust, gurus, but not exclusively even gurus, because a lot of us may not have a guru, but in general, people we trust. What I have found is that they actually can be the right mirrors for us. So for me, for example, when I had gone back to America after being in India for the first 3 months, and it's a long story, I won't go into the story here, some of you know it already, but Pujya Swamiji sent me back to America to finish another semester of my PhD program. And I wanted to stay in India. So I go back, I follow his orders. I was very obedient. I went back. And when I go back, everybody is telling me to stay in America. Now my heart, my mind, every aspect of me, it wasn't just like an inner decision that I wasn't sure which part of me it came from to go back. But every cell of my being was breathing India. I knew with every minute and every moment I have to be back there. And in fact, I knew I already am there. I felt like I was here even though I was there. But everyone started saying, you're making this horrible mistake. Definitely don't do it. If you want to do it later. Finish your degree first. Get yourself settled. Then you want to take a year or two for, spiritual exploration. Go ahead and do it. And I actually found myself about 6 weeks or so after coming back to California, genuinely confused and genuinely in this state of, oh my God, am I making this horrible decision? Maybe I am being called by a desire. Maybe, who knows? Because remember, I was in a psychology PhD program. So I had teachers and deans and people who really know exactly what to say, explaining to me exactly why this was not the right decision. And I really got confused. And I really hit a point where I thought, oh my God, what am I doing? And again, every aspect of me knew this is where I'm supposed to be. But I really started to doubt it. And I really started to think, okay, maybe these people are right. Fortunately for me, I had 2 people, mentors of different sorts, whom I deeply, deeply, deeply trusted. Had trusted for a very long time. Had proven themselves over the years of my life, not just to be amazing, incredible beings in and of themselves, but had actually proven to be people for whom everything they told me was for me. People who I knew did not have an ulterior agenda. They weren't looking for me, it wasn't that they needed me to make a choice because I was holding up some mirror for them, or that it brought up something for them, or whatever it was. Or that they just had some agenda, and I knew they had guided me well in the past. They only had my best interest at heart, and they were people whom I deeply respected. And whom when I looked at, I thought, yeah, this is wisdom. This is where I want to go. They're both much older than I am. And both people, I thought, yeah, this is wisdom I would like to have. Both of them said to me in different ways, but in no uncertain terms, go back to India. In fact, one of them said to me, I was sitting with her, bemoaning this confusion that I was having. And I said, I don't know what to do. And she looked at me. And she said, she's a seer of sorts and deeply, deeply spiritual and knew me very, very well. And she said, when I look at you, I see a woman in India. She said, I don't see a woman in California. She said, right now in this moment, I see a woman in India. She said, energetically, you're there already. She said, you don't have a decision to make. She said, as far as I can see it, the only decision you need to make is whether you're going to spend the next 2 months, which is what I had left, or 6 weeks left of the semester, driving yourself crazy, convincing yourself that you're making a decision that actually you've already made, or spending the next 6 weeks putting your stuff in storage and getting yourself ready to move to India. And because they were 2 people whom I respected so deeply, it didn't matter whether there were 100 people on the other side. I knew what they were saying was right. And of course, what they were saying resonated with my own deepest, deepest, deepest truth. That in that moment had gotten lost. It had gotten lost in desire. It had gotten lost in fear. It had gotten lost in ego. My parents didn't want me to come. There was such a drama that I had so many inner voices at that time that I needed to have some outer voices to help me bring clarity. And so what I would say is that in general, in every experience that I've seen in my life and in the life of everyone who has shared their experiences with a guru with me, the guru knows. Because what the guru is seeing, see, what we see is this intersection of time and space. We see how I feel now, what I want now, whether it's something I'm grabbing, whether it's something I'm pushing, whether it's something I'm desiring, whatever it may be, I'm experiencing what I'm feeling now. The guru actually sees it all. You know, we speak so much in here about that tapestry and our inability to see the full tapestry that makes karma make sense. Well, the guru actually can see the full tapestry. And so I would always trust the guru, because we are limited in our ability to make any decision by laws of time and space. I can only see this time or the past. I can only see this place. The enlightened masters, and that may not necessarily be every guru, but the enlightened masters aren't limited like that. They can see everything. And so having the benefit of someone who can see everything, this is what people pay a lot of money to, like palm readers and fortune tellers and, you know, clairvoyance for, is like, tell me my future, tell me this. And I don't know whether they can see it, but I know the guru, the enlightened ones, can see it. And so I would always follow that. And what I would do is figure out, especially if it's someone, and again, we've been speaking about a guru, but it doesn't have to be a guru. It could be just a wise mentor, someone you trust deeply, someone who knows you very well, who's deeply connected, is I would figure out, what is it in me that's fighting against that? Not in a bad way, not in a self-denigrating way at all, but simply in the excitement and curiosity of, that's so interesting. And by the way, that doesn't mean that we always have to do what they say, because some people may have, a more rebellious streak. And remember, as we speak so much about karma and the fruits of karma, it's never about good and bad or reward and punishment. It's always about that which is taking us closer on our next step to the truth of who we are. And so regardless of what decision we make, it's going to have fruits. And there's nothing to feel ever badly or guilty about. I imagine that over the course of our lives, we've all gotten advice from someone we trust and we haven't followed it, whether it was our parents when we were young, whatever it may have been. Most people at some point in their life, even if it was just something as simple as, you really shouldn't eat that whole bag of cookies before dinner because you're going to spoil your appetite. And we think, no, I'll be fine. And then you eat it, and then, of course, your appetite is spoiled. So whether it's little things or big things, most of us have had the experience of getting really good advice from someone we trust and love and who loves us and who knows what's right, not following it, and experiencing the consequences. And it's not punishment, it's not bad, it's just yet another experience of, oh yeah, I guess I can't eat my dinner, I ate that bag of cookies. And so, but for you particularly as an introspective person, and for people who are on that path of introspection and really looking at the self, I would always ask myself, what is it in me that's fighting against that? Because that's where our own introspection gets interesting. What is it? What is that? Because that takes us into a whole interesting aspect of ourselves. Of what is it? What is it I'm looking for other than the light? Because remember, that's what the guru brings. People come sometimes to the guru and say, so I've got these 2 job offers. Which should I take? Now, the guru's not the one who's going to tell you which job to take. The light that the guru brings is not about you should go to this college or that college or take this job or that job or buy this house or that house. The light that the guru brings is the light of the truth of ourselves. And so we certainly may choose this job and end up hating it and choosing something different, or choosing to buy a house on that street and hating it and having to do something else. But the light of the guru is bringing us into an awareness and a knowledge and a path of ourselves that's deeper and higher and more than just have this job, buy this house, go to that college, do this. And so I would really take the opportunity from one person inclined toward introspection to another to figure out, what is it in me that isn't wanting this light right now? What is it in me that's rebelling against the light? And that's a really interesting and very powerful discussion to have with the self. Yeah. Yes, last question.
I'm in a relationship for 7 years, and we have 2 children. When we fight, he just say, "I don't belong to you, and I'm not your property," something like that. And then one day I just explained to him. I said, "Sorry, I feel that I belong to you because we have 2 children, and you're the father of my children, and I'm the mother of your children, and the children belong to us, and we are a family, And he said, "Yeah, I understand, and I feel like that too. But for me, the word belong,
Yes.
for me, the word belong cannot be used to a person. Like, I'm not an object, like you said, something like that. So what would be the best thing, how to say it,
So, language and semantics is always so difficult in relationships. We have these fights where one person says something, the other person takes it in their definition of the word, and we end up with a fight over, without realizing actually that we agree more than we think we agree. But we just have different understandings of the word. But in a fight, we tend to lose our sense of peace so much that we don't even give ourselves the space to have that discussion and to realize it. And so what I would say is, don't worry so much about the actual word. Understand and agree on the concept, which is, you are one family. You are connected to each other. You belong together. Whether you belong to each other or not, we agree that you belong together. You are supposed to be together, like Velcro. Supposed to be together. Husband, wife, children, you're all one. connected by this love. So he agrees with that, you agree with that. Then the question comes, are you each other's property? Do you have the right to tell each other what to do? And again, without even using the word belong, which seems to be the buzzword in your relationship, without even using that word, no, we don't have the right to tell people what to do. Husband to wife or wife to husband. And this is actually where so many problems come in. Because we want the person to do what we want them to do, but we have no actual control over them. And so what I would suggest is that you internally figure out how to unhook your happiness and your peace from what your husband does. Because as long as you need him to act in a certain way for you to be happy, you will be miserable. Not all the time, but when he does the things that aren't what you want, you'll be miserable. And the sooner you can realize I have no control over him, the better. Now, in a love relationship, obviously we try to do things that the other person wants as much as we can, just to make the other person happy. But we're not going to do everything always for them. And so it's very important to realize that the only one you have control over is yourself. And so instead of trying to manage him, manage yourself. When he does something that you don't want, manage yourself instead of him. And of course, that should go vice versa. Meaning, if you do something that isn't what he wants, he also should learn to manage himself rather than managing you. Because whatever it is, it should be mutually applicable. And this is very important. And as your children grow, if they're very young, this may not pertain yet, but as they grow, this is going to be important with them too. They're also not your property. One of my favorite poems ever is a poem by Khalil Gibran on parenting that says basically your children have come through you, but they don't belong to you. They're not yours. Life's longing for life has used you. Those are not his exact words. The first part is, the second part is not. Has used you to bring forth life. That doesn't make them your property. And so as they grow, try to realize that with them too. They're going to have their own ideas. They're going to have their own ways of living. And again, the sooner that you can unhook your own happiness and peace from what they do, what your husband does, the happier you're going to be. And interestingly, the happier the family as a unit will be. The more the family will belong together when there is the space for each person to be themselves. And that's what's important in a family, is realize that you belong together, but you're not each other's property. And that belonging together is the glue that holds you together, but it's also what enables you to give each other freedom. Because if I know that we belong together, and she says, I'm going off for yoga class, and I say, but wait, I thought you were gonna, make me lunch, or sit here and be with me, or what. Because I know we belong together, it's actually going to enable me to give her the space to go and do that. Because I'm not going to risk our belongingness together in order to get her to be obedient to what I say. When I know I belong with this woman, I'm going to figure out how to adapt myself so that I can belong with her happily. So belonging is very important. It's what prevents us from having rampant divorce rates. And if you don't have a sense of belonging, then it's, oh, you've stopped doing what I want, you've stopped doing what makes me happy, okay, this isn't working, let's forget it. But when I know we belong together, then okay, I'm going to adapt myself. And everybody should adapt so that there's the space for everybody to grow. Under one sun, together, in one soil, but separate. Roots interconnected, but separate trees. Okay? Yeah. And don't worry so much about fighting over the word with him. Just make an agreement that you're never going to use the word. Find some other word. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening. We'll see you all tomorrow.